Hey everyone, I'm out here in the garage and what we're going to be doing today is replacing the rear shocks on the 2008 Acura MDX. So stay tuned. So if you're new to the channel, I just want to welcome you here and hopefully you'll consider subscribing if you like what you see. Also, check out Car Apprentice on Instagram, X, and Facebook. I post lots of pictures and videos on those platforms before I post anything on YouTube. And occasionally I'll post things on those platforms I don't post on YouTube. Also, check out the website at carapprentice.com. And don't forget to hit the like button if you like this video. So what we're going to be doing today is replacing the rear shocks on the 2008 Acura MDX. They were in terrible shape. So this car is very floaty in the rear end, so when you go over changes in elevation, it would kind of ride like a wave. So that's not a good thing, especially when you're trying to drive your car at about 60 miles an hour on the freeway. So we're going to go ahead and replace those today. So let's get into it. Alright, so I'm going to do a simple bounce test in the rear end first. As you can see, it's bouncing excessively, so that likely indicates that the shocks are shot. Alright, 22 millimeters. Next, I'm going to jack up the wheel slightly. Alright, so what I like to do normally is do a little bit of a check back here. In our case, this shock is old. It needs to go. We saw how bouncy the car is in the rear end, and that is the culprit right there. The other side is probably in the same shape. And it's going to depend on what kind of symptoms you're getting. If you're getting a lot of popping, it could be a ball joint related issue, that would point you to a stabilizer link in some cases. Also, this back here, the rear stabilizer, this one looks like it could possibly be replaced. You see it's kind of ovaling out, it looks like. So it seems like it's okay. We'll see how it goes, we'll see how it rides, but that also may need to be replaced. And a lot of times the rear suspension kind of gets neglected and the front gets a lot of the focus. So there could be some components back here that you may have to replace at the same time you're doing your shocks back here. So I would tug on this, and what I'm looking for there is the bushing, and then also this ball joint right there. I want to check both those. Those appear to be in good shape. There's nothing leaking here. And we've got that lower arm down there, that one. And you can also check your axles while you're back here. This one looks like it's good. Don't see any leaking at all anywhere. And then check your coil back here too. Make sure there's nothing broken or rusted there. Our cushion back here looks good. So it appears the only issue we have with this car right now is the rear shocks. There's also a bushing right there. So just take a look at that, make sure that's in good shape. Alright, so to get this damper out, as they call it, or rear shock, it really is pretty simple. There's a bolt there, and there is another bolt right there. Now the service manual calls for removing a couple other fasteners too, and also calls for replacing things. So you can do this really simply, take those two bolts out and replace them, or I'm going to show you the steps from the service manual. You can make your decision from there. Alright, so getting the nut off here is very tricky. You can see it's kind of recessed a little weird there. So what I'm going to do, got a couple tricks up my sleeve. I'm going to get some penetrating oil on here first though. Here's some liquid wrench. Container just to catch that. That should be good. Let that set up for a little bit. I'm going to wipe off this nut so I have a really good grip with the socket. You could also use a wire brush on this too. That would help out. Alright, so we need to get this nut broken loose. Normally you put a 5mm hex inside of here. Make sure you get it all the way in, so you don't want to strip that. So get it all the way in and then use something on this nut. The only thing I could find that was close to that, or close to fitting, would be an offset. And as you can see, that's the only position that the offset fits squarely on the nut. So that's not going to work. So what I'm going to do instead, take that off. I'm going to try cracking this nut loose with a 14 first. 14 on a breaker bar or a long handled ratchet for leverage. Get that on there all the way and just kind of yank on it. So that's loose. At this point you can try spinning it off. It might come off, may not. We got penetrating oil on there, so that could be enough to get it off. And try that. It stops right there, it looks like. Alright, so this is fairly loose. We still got to get it off. If I try to spin this off with, for example, this offset, you can see it's going to try to rotate the stud. So we need to hold this in place. And also keep this from going back in the hole. Hold that in place. And then I'm going to turn the stud clockwise. So what's going to happen, this is going to try to go back in the hole too, so we'll have to stop every once in a while and adjust ourselves. There we go. Alright. And then we'll push this through, like so. Alright, so I'm going to slide the jack under the lower arm. This should be good. Alright, so we're going to remove some bolts. Strangely, the service manual mentions removing this bolt, where really all you have to do is take this one out. So like I said, I'm just going to follow the book here. I believe the engineers know a lot more than I do about this car, so I'm just going to go with what they've decided. So we're going to take this one out first. That's a 17. And then this one is a 19. All right, I'm going to jack it up a little more. Get those holes aligned. There we go. Okay, 17 millimeters on this upper bolt. So I've had this out recently. If you have issues getting it out, pry bar and some penetrating oil should help you out. And put it down like that. And just take it out there. You can see this one really didn't fight very much because it is dead. So as you saw when we pulled this off the car, it doesn't have any life left in it. So I'll just collapse it real quick. So it collapsed without any resistance at all, really. So I have to pull it apart. Alright, so here's the new shock, KYB 349025. I saw on the MDX's forum that the sack strut has the exact same part number, so it sounds like there's some parts intermingling going on there. I was going to put on a Honda shock, but they are very expensive, and since this isn't very hard to get off, I figured I'd go with KYB, give them a shot. This one is made in the USA. Alright, so here's all the replacement hardware. I have seen that people have snapped their bolts when they don't replace them. So I would recommend replacing at least the damper bolts. That's just my opinion. You can do what you want. So here's the upper damper bolt, or shock bolt. 90171 STX A01. And the lower damper bolt is right here. That is 90172 STX A00. And then we've got the lower arm bolt, 90170 STX A01. All right, and then lastly is the stabilizer link nuts. So one for each side of the car. 90002 S10000. All right, so before we proceed, I'm going to test this one out to make sure it's working. Just gonna, yeah, it's got a lot more resistance to it. It should come back pretty fast. So it's a little slower than I expected, but definitely better than the other ones we had on the car. All right, so we're going to start with the lower arm bolt. Okay, tap on it a little bit. That's about as far as it'll go right now. All right, so I've got a pry bar up here. I'm kind of leveraging this while I'm turning the bolt at the same time. Okay, that's good enough right there. We don't want to tighten it yet. Okay, I'm going to lower the jack a little bit. Okay, I'm going to put the shock in place here. Let's get it set in there. It's down. Alright, so I'm going to throw in the upper bolt. That's good for now. Okay, so we're going to put on the lower bolt now. Get these holes lined up. Okay. Have to go all the way through, hopefully. There we go, that's better. That's good for now. Alright, so I've got the stabilizer link back in here. As you can see, I also have a clamp up here to hold it steady so I'm not fighting with it. So I can keep this on steady at the same time. So I'll take a picture of that. You don't necessarily have to do that, but I figured it might help me speed this up a little bit. So I'm just thread the nut on, like so, and then I'll put this on there, and we're gonna go this way this time. 5mm hex. Okay, so it is a little tight, not much. It's probably 5-10 foot-pounds. That should be enough to where we can tighten this nut down without having to hold the stud in place. All right, so I'm going to jack up the suspension on this side to take the weight off the jack stands and put it on the suspension. So that's called, of course, loading the suspension. I think that did it. That's good right there. Okay, link nut here, 14mm, 36 foot-pounds. Yep, that worked. Cool. So yeah, just tighten it a little bit, and then when you load the suspension, you should be able to tighten it down the rest of the way. Okay, so we're going to work on these two lower bolts. This one's 17 and this one is 19. I'll do this one first. 47 foot-pounds. And this one is a 19. That's 83 foot-pounds. All right, then our last bolt, 17 millimeters, 47 foot-pounds. The last thing to do is to reinstall the wheel and tighten the lug nuts to 94 foot-pounds with the car on the ground. Also, a wheel alignment is recommended. And that's it. Alright, so there you have it. There's replacing the rear shocks on the 2008 Acura MDX. And as you saw, I followed the book on this one. You can choose to do just a simple replacement of the shock, but I just figured it was best to do what they said in the book and replace all the hardware along with that shock. So hopefully this information was helpful. And thanks for watching.